Those cats, still on vacation. Hope you enjoyed yesterday's video. I think it needed to be said. You may not think it needed to be said. You may disagree with my opinions. That's okay. I can live with it. But let's have a look at what the actual threats are. What you need to do first of all is get a pen and a piece of paper and actually sit down for about half an hour to an hour and write down every single threat to you and your family that you can think of. This should take some time. Do it now. Hopefully you paused and hopefully you thought of a few immediate threats to yourself and your family, and long-term threats and short-term threats. We can start to subdivide this quite quickly, but for now, have a look at your list. Find out what are the 6 worst events on the list. Then think of which are the 6 most likely events on the list. Then think of which are the 6 least impactful events on the list, and then which 6 are the most likely events on the list. Okay, do that. Hopefully what you wouldn't come up with is something like Jade Helm, or the United Nations increasing chemtrail spraying to sterilize right-wing people in America, or some convoluted plot from Muslims to replace white people in America. All of those things are crazy, untrue, and don't have any foundation in reality. Alrighty. But this is how I would do my list. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to think about the threats. And like you say, you can pick the 6 most likely or the 6 most impactful, whatever. Have a list of threats and then pick 6. And then what I'm going to do is show you the 6 I've picked for this demonstration. And it is a demonstration. Some of them are actual top 6 for me and some of them really are not. But I needed to do this just to show you how it works. Now of course when you do yours, you'll probably come up with a whole bunch of different ones, right? Because you're different from me and you live in a different place from me and you have different information from me, and that's just fine. What you want from this list is your personal list of things that you consider to be credible, serious threats to normal life for you and your family. And bringing that up, teamwork. If you can, get your spouse or even your kids to come up with some ideas for this as well. Don't want to frighten them, but at the same time, what are they actually worried about in the world? What are they worried that can affect them? Because you know what? It really isn't all about you, right? Shouldn't be. Having got my list of 6, I then look at them from top to bottom and think, how likely is this to happen? I'm calling this risk of impact. For obviously, illness is extremely high. We all get sick. And I hate to break this to you, but we're all going to die as well. Car accidents, that's pretty high. Short-term power outages, moderate where I live. EMP, I consider that to be low. I also consider it to be part of a nuclear war scenario, but let's stick with the list we have. I put EMP, not nuclear war. Don't start inventing different ways of looking at it. Supervolcano, I consider that extremely unlikely. Prepper channels out there consider it to be extremely probable, and keep screeching to everybody to prepare for it. I mean, let's face it, if Yellowstone or any of the other calderas go up, life as we know it will be very, very different. But to actually prepare for that, even if you built a bunker, is kind of senseless, and I'll explain why. The ash cloud from that means you'll never get out of your bunker. The acidification of water means you're probably going to run out of fresh water, unless you've got 9 months supply of food and water. Even then you probably won't make it. So some things are worth preparing for and some are not. Obviously smoke hoods from wildfires can be applicable in this scenario, but as a scenario, sorry, Yellowstone is very unlikely. Space-eating clown zombies, as Praxis puts it, they're like the ultimate. I'm actually reading about Invasion right now from space, and it's an absolutely excellent series, and I'm probably going to cover it a little bit at some point. But realistically, it shouldn't be on my top 6 list, should it? I put them there as illustrative purposes. I'm constructing this list from 6 of the most likeliest threats to me and my family that I think will happen in the near term or could easily happen in the near term. Things I'm bothered about. And then I rank them in likelihood of happening. Okay? So when you look at these charts, you'll see that you can look at this in very different ways. This one does very much the same thing. It's looking at probability, likelihood, but it's looking at consequences in terms of injuries. I'm not looking in terms of injuries, I'm looking in terms of lifestyle change. This is another risk matrix. This one is probability versus severity. So if threats you've eliminated, for example, if you go vegan, you may have eliminated diabetes, are eliminated, so you don't deal with them. Frequent, you decide whether the impact on you is negligible or catastrophic or somewhere in between. And that's the critical point of my list, is that having got a list of things that are credible to you to prep for, you then decide how likely they are to occur. If they're unlikely to occur, and or if the risks are low to negligible or non-existent, or you can't do anything about it, then don't prep for that. Prep for things that are moderate to highly likely to occur to you and your family in your area, in your life in 2019, that would have a moderate to severe impact on you. And that's the crucial thing here. Stop watching YouTube channels that are going on and on and on about stuff that is not a credible threat to you, or stuff that you cannot mitigate, avoid, or even deal with. Things like how to grow vegetables, how to preserve vegetables. Those are the channels you want to be watching because they cover most SHTFs. How to deal with a moderate power outage covers most SHTFs. But planning actively to try and survive a Yellowstone volcanic eruption that happens about every 65,000 years or so, or 650,000 years, I haven't looked it up recently, and we're due for it, and the ground's rumbling, and the poles are switching, and sunspots are making the earth more fragile. Information's good. Knowing about earthquakes, knowing about solar flares, all that stuff's available from science, and easily available. But how credible a threat is it to you in 2019 as you sit here watching or listening to me? For me, it isn't. Maybe it is for you. But maybe you should move away from Yellowstone. Or at least get downwind. And by downwind, I believe Elon Musk is going to Mars, because frankly, it will affect the entire globe, and there's not a heck of a lot we can do to stop it or deal with it. That's the truth. So that's why the third column is the non-traditional level of impact. If it's game over only, there's nothing you can do to mitigate it. It's just going to kill you anyway, or a high degree of that. Then don't focus on it. Or focus on ways to get away from that threat where you are. If the threat is high, but the risk of it happening is very low, concentrate on things that are likely to happen that have a less dramatic effect. So many preppers, so many prepping channels are chasing the exciting, the extreme, the kind of crazy. Don't be that type of prepper. Use your brain. That's why we're here. That's why we have the internet. So my fourth column's a little different. I put cost to mitigate per year. These are round figures, it's Canadian dollars. No, I haven't used an accountancy tool to do this, but I'm just figuring it out. For example, illness is $2,000 a year. What that actually is the cost of insurance, etc., and non-insured costs. Approximately, for me in Canada, that's what it would be. I imagine in other parts of the world that would be higher or lower. Car accident. You can't really put a price on a car accident, can you? But you can put a price on having car accident insurance. And also, how much money does it cost to buy a seatbelt cutter? I put short-term power outage at 500 to 1,000 a year. Now this may seem a little extreme. That's a lot of candles. But it isn't extreme at all. What it actually covers is things like my BioLite and also solar panel costs spread out over more than 1 year. You notice EMP, I actually costed it out. The reason I costed out EMP was because if you actually have it as a credible threat and you want to prep for that, that's fine, it's up to you. You're actually going to need a heck of a lot more solar and power supplies and water pumps and mechanical valves than I would necessarily prep for, looking at short-term power outages. Long-term grid down, EMP will go on for quite some time, probably years, if indeed it's ever recovered. You'll also notice I'm putting a cash value on supervolcano. What that actually covers is air filters and masks and a few other bits and pieces that are not specific for supervolcano, but would probably be paid for, or things I would buy if I was prepping for a supervolcano. A lot of this stuff has overlap, right? And that's the key thing here as well. If you prep for the likely and the most impactful, you're probably going to cover a lot of the bases. Not all of them. And I for one welcome my clown zombie overlords. I really do. I expect them, they'll come here and they'll harvest human beings who aren't vegan, put them on trucks, take them back to Alpha Centauri and gobble you up. Now, this is a little different for most people. I also put in a cost to avoid per year, not to mitigate or to deal with, but to have that threat eliminated. So you'll notice I put $300 for illness. That's approximately the cost of insurance we require to replace our lost income. I'm full-time, I have that covered from work, Kitty does not, so that's what we have to do. And an illness/death, life insurance is vital. Car accident, again, it's the insurance cost. You notice the other ones I put cost to avoid is not possible. They're not possible for the simple reason they're outside of your scope to control to avoid them happening. Now, one of the things I've seen recently is a lot of preppers online are telling people, now is the time, buy extra white rice, etc., etc. And people in the comment section, because people are really, really dumb, go, oh, thank you, oh host of the Prepper channel. I went to the store after watching this video and I stocked up 50 pounds of white rice. Leaving aside the nutritional nightmare that is most prepping nutritional sources, this is also an interesting thing. If you honestly need somebody on this box to tell you X is going to happen real soon, you need to get some extra food, and you're actually a prepper, you got to kind of wonder who's actually responding to those videos. Now, it's a different matter to say, you know, Iran's just shot down an American Air Force jet, I've just gone to the grocery store and I bought some extra food. That's again a trigger thing, and that was an entirely different video about steps, phased response to external events. But honestly, a year from now, 2 years from now, 4 years from now, the same prepper channels will be saying the same things about whatever happens to catch their eye on CNN that week or on Fox News that week. That will become the credible threat this week, and everybody en masse will follow that credible threat this week like it has actual reality. Those of us old enough remember Y2K. If you don't remember Y2K, perhaps you should. Perhaps you should also think about 9/11. Remember 9/11? Do you? Everybody thought that it was going to be an ongoing terrorist war against the West. And to some degree there has been terrorist violence around the West, but nothing at all on the scale of 9/11. Now, leaving aside conspiracy theory, because it's huge, because it's impactful, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to repeat. Remember that I have no idea what's going to happen in the next 4 minutes from now, certainly not the next 4 or 5 weeks from now, not 4 years from now. And nor does anybody else you watch online. Future studies have shown again and again predictions about the future generally are wrong. What you can do is look at trends and extrapolate from those trends. For example, carbon dioxide is rising and we're still burning more and more coal and oil and chopping down more and more trees. Therefore, it is more and more likely that the global average temperature will continue to keep rising, which will probably lead to the ice caps melting, which will probably lead to a blah, 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 blah. Perfectly reasonable. But for all I know, right now in a basement somewhere, somebody's come up with carbon capture technology that's going to be great and fix that. Or a supervolcano is going to blow up and make prepping for hot, humid weather a little bit moot, at least for a time. So having done all of that, you then decide to rank order them. You can do 10 you like. I chose 1 through 6, with 1 being the most thing I should most focus on and 6 being something I shouldn't. Now obviously when you do your actual list, all 6 should be things that are reasonable and realistic and moderately or high impact. But doing this will allow you to go, you know what, I'm spending all of my time and effort buying MREs at a huge amount of money because I expect there to be no power. Perhaps, maybe, I should buy a solar system or buy a rocket stove, whatever, so I can grow my own food and cook my own food, or even hunt if you must, fixing the issue is not possible if SHTF happens. Avoiding it might be possible if you can identify and act and be able to act. Mitigating it should be possible. We all should be possibly proactive enough to actually be able to mitigate most of the likely SHTFs that will affect us personally, our local communities, our nations and the globe. We should be prepping using our brains, not our hearts. We shouldn't be focusing on dumb politics. Left versus right, left versus right. Antifa's coming for you. Nazis, Nazis. Civil War 2, Civil War 3, 4, 5, 6. It could be a large series of events. We have no idea. What we do know is the power's going to go out at some point in our lifetime. May come on again within 20 minutes, might take a couple of days, might be 3 or 4 days. We also know power tends to go out when it's really, really hot and really, really cold. Maybe we should have some solar batteries. Maybe we should have some rechargeable batteries. Maybe we should be thinking about how to cook and heat the house, or cook and cool the house. And if you've got medical conditions, or if you're all elderly like I am, those things become more and more important. So this is why it has to be done on a personal level. To keep going on and on and on and on about the same old tired gibberish, the UN, globalists, immigration, none of this has any real major impact on you. But as Andrew Yang points out, increasing use of robotics is increasingly likely to make you unemployed. And if you don't live in a socialist country, that unemployment could be quite horrific for you. What are you doing to prep for that? What are you actually doing to prep for an economic recession? The recession is going to happen. It's cyclical. They happen. It's been an awful long time since the last one, and then we all know that the longer the boom period, the higher the drop period, and the worse the drop period. We all know that. But how many of you are prepping for economic collapse? You're trying to buy as much gold and silver as possible so your wealth will be solid. What you're trying to do is not deal with an economic collapse. You have a gun, you'll shoot anybody that comes in your house, and you have some gold and silver, and you think that'll buy you safety. It won't. Watching prepper channels won't make you safe either. Practicing skills, thinking about things, having appropriate technology, working on the mundane, water storage, water purification, seed storage, planting, soil enrichment, how to repair clothing, all of those things are helpful to you in Grid Down. And I'll show you one piece of tech I just bought today, because I have some like this, but they're pretty big, so I wanted a smaller one. And I've had a few smaller ones, and I'm not really keen on them. When I did my risk assessment recently, I realized that I needed this piece of equipment. This is it, the humble, simple Pry Bar. I needed something that can open doors in a hurry in case I need to shelter in place, and it's not my place. But I didn't want what I have, which is this huge heavy thing, because you're not really going to want to carry that. But this is small, but big enough and strong enough to do the job. And the thinner ones, yeah, no, this will get through any door or any window at all in any building other than in high security buildings. And I wanted it. And that's part of what you do after you've done this threat assessment. You look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 likely scenarios, and you make some solid preps for them. And you can even make action plans. You can use Excel sheets. I personally don't. I just go blah, and pick up stuff as and when I think, but it's on my mind. And this threat assessment should be done annually. I do it on my birthday. Happy birthday to me tomorrow, eh? I'm 55. I'm halfway to 110. This means that physical ability to deal with SHTF become less and less likely for me to be able to cope with, so I need more and more aids and mitigation methods than somebody in their early 30s should require. Of course, some people in their early 30s are a lot less physically unfit than I am. So remember, in SHTF, if you don't prep, tomorrow will always be worse than today. But for goodness sake, prep with reality, with a plan that's sane. Don't get caught up in nuts conspiracies, stupid politics, and general flim-flam that people are throwing on YouTube and getting huge amounts of subs and clicks for. It's not about being popular, it's about not dying in SHTF. Are the channels you're watching stopping you from dying in SHTF? Or are they just filling your head full of nonsense? Well, that's all from me. Tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow I am still on the lake paddling with Kitty unless she's killed me. But in honour of my 110th half birthday, I have a gift for you all. I have an 1 and 3 minute video that is entirely songs that mean something to me, and I'm not boring you by telling you what they mean. And the video is not designed to be watched, you can just listen to it. So I hope tomorrow or the next day you play that video in its entirety. All ads on that video are going to support the artists on the video, not me. I don't make any money anyway. Enjoy. Toodles.